with Kameel Nasr. I am Kameel Nasr. I have a great privilege to have our local author, Bruce Coffin, who is a mystery writer. Welcome, Bruce.
Thank you for having me.
So is Coffin your real name?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it's Coffin as in funeral, right?
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
That's a great for a name for a mystery writer, right? You just
Couldn't
have
have planned
to fall
that any
into
better.
it. So you've been a cop.
Yes.
How many years have you been a cop?
28 years.
And when did you decide to become a writer?
Actually, that was something I wanted to do way back.
Really?
Early on.
Yeah.
I went to college on scholarships, actually, because of my writing.
Uh-huh.
And I ended up taking a 28-year detour away from that to do law enforcement. So it just sort of came full circle.
I see. So were you plotting in your head while you were solving crimes?
No, that probably would have been smarter of me to think that way. But no, really, I for whatever reason, I really kind of got the bug again about 6 months before I retired. And I decided I was going to sit down and write that great American novel that we all have inside us.
Right. So, as I told you, I read your book. What's the name of it? Do you have a copy?
I don't really know. I know that's bad. Among the Shadows.
Among the Shadows. I read it on the plane going to Italy, and really enjoyed the book. I thought it was a page turner. One thing that kind of surprised me, usually in cop stories, the cops are fighting the bad guys.
Right.
The bad guys are the cops.
Right.
I don't want to give the story away. The bad guys are the cops. Did you get a lot of pushback from your colleagues about this?
You know, that's a question I get a lot. Believe it or not, I really didn't. I thought it was something that you don't really plan that as you're moving forward in your plot. I thought, what a great idea to try and mix it up where you're not really sure who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. Obviously, from an investigator standpoint, that makes it much harder for my protagonist. But yeah, not really. It's funny, I was afraid that the police officers that I used to work with wouldn't like my book, and they've enjoyed it just as much as what I call normal people. People that didn't do that job. So.
Yeah. And it takes place in Portland, Portland, Maine.
Portland, Maine.
Where you were a cop, right?
Yes,
so you know the stories. How real is the story in terms of what police actually do?
The process is very real.
Yeah.
For me, I think that was one of the things that I wanted to adhere to in writing this series. Really, I feel like the one difference between what I'm writing and what most of the murder mystery authors are writing is that I have the experience that I've lived through, and I want to try to relay that to the reader as accurately as I possibly can. So when you see scenes where things are really getting heated behind the scenes, the politics is rearing up, and John Byron is pushing back at his supervisors. All that stuff happens. Yeah,
John Byron is the protagonist.
He is, yeah.
Now we know a little about his life. His life is slightly not his personal life. Slightly unraveling. In the middle of the story, he gets served divorce papers, if I remember right.
Yes.
But you don't go that much into his life. Are cops different than other people?
I think they're different in that they internalize a lot of things. They're obviously exposed to things that your average person will never see, will never be exposed to. And as tough as I think we all want to portray that we are, you get chinks in that armor after a number of years. And police officers really, their job is about not asking for help. It's about going out and solving problems for other people.
Right.
So we're really the last people to ask for help.
I see.
And I think a lot of officers that have been on the job a long time are carrying around quite a bit of baggage.
Yeah. I just want to, you were hit me with this idea. I was at a little reading of mystery writers, and there were 8 of us. I was the only guy. And I think, and in the audience there were mostly women. And I was been wondering for the last months how to get boys to read,
Mm,
you know, and write.
right.
And I would really want a program for that. You got any kind of insights on that?
Well, it's funny because when I started doing this, one of the things that I was advised from other writers was that most of the mystery readers, the vast majority of
Yeah.
mystery readers, are women,
Right.
and I never knew that.
Yeah.
So when you know who your audience is, there are certain things you might do to tweak your certain characters, or maybe you write a scene that has a little bit more of a feel to it that might appeal to women or whatever. But for the most part, I try to write just the way I feel on any given point. And I was told that up front, and so really to my delight, a lot of the police officers, the male police officers
Right.
that I worked with,
Yeah.
are reading it and actually enjoying it. So
Yeah.
maybe I can bring a few with me.
Yeah, I think we really have to. I think would really change the world. I think as I grew up as a kid, we weren't really encouraged to read. We were encouraged to do math and stuff like that,
Right.
and be tough guys.
Yeah.
So in your protagonist, we're talking with Bruce Coffin. A great writer. I loved your book, by the way. I thought it was a really good book, and I'm looking forward to the next one. I will talk about that in a minute.
Sure.
Are cops as dedicated as your protagonist is? Do they get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and
Yeah.
yeah?
Actually, yeah.
That's
I mean, you know, any business is the same where there are always people that are more invested than others.
right.
But I can tell you that anybody tasked with doing that job for, 20, 30 years in the city and still caring about people,
Yeah.
they get up and they're dogged in the pursuit of justice, really, is what it
Yeah.
comes down to. Detectives even more so when you're talking about trying to solve homicides.
Yes.
You pretty much put, the detectives are forced to put their lives on hold, their personal lives, and put the good of the case first.
Yeah.
That's what the job is.
But in Portland, there aren't that many homicides.
There aren't.
Compared to.
No, not like in my book.
And in Maine, in Maine, there are many mystery writers. Many murders happen in the books
Right.
that don't really happen in person.
Right.
Why did you? I guess you picked it because you worked there.
Yeah, for me, I think it's that thing, and people ask all the time why there are so many mystery writers in Maine, or
Yeah,
there are scenes
that's
in Maine.
right.
And I say, I think it's because it's almost like Maine is such a violent, free place comparatively, that it's like it's that happy valley feel, and maybe we're just bored with that, and so
Yeah.
we have to mix it up.
Right, I think it's like murders in the English countryside. There aren't too many murders, but there are a lot of mysteries.
That's true.
And there's something conducive to wanting to solve the crime.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and there's no bigger crime to solve than somebody who's stolen the life of someone else.
Yeah. Now, in your protagonist's father committed suicide.
He did.
Which is really a very emotional thing for anybody to happen. I have to tell you, I got right away that there was something wrong with that suicide. I don't want to give the story away, but
You're a mystery writer.
and we find out later maybe something is not right. Did you ever have any personal experience with suicide?
I have. I've actually lost probably a handful of close friends to that
Yeah.
over the years, and it's funny with what we were just speaking of earlier. I wanted to put that in the book for a couple of reasons. I think it's just the way it is. It's a real thing.
Yeah, there are more suicides than there are homicides.
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
2 or 3 times as many.
Yeah.
I think it's the biggest violent crime, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And because every once in a while there may be one that's mislabeled or whatever, and I wanted to put it in there for the reason that I've experienced it, so I know what that feels like.
Yeah.
And I also thought, when I was trying to flesh out John Byron, what could I do that would make him not just a second generation police officer,
Uh-huh.
but would really have affected him at an age where, he's a teenager when this happens.
Yes.
So it really
And
defines who
he finds
Yes, he finds his father.
His father dead with
So,
a
it shapes who he is.
Right.
And really, the other thing I thought would make him real is everybody can relate to having their parents tell them something when they're growing up. We all remember those lines. The parents gave us the great lines. Used to get tired of. And you'd say to yourself, "Oh my God, if you ever hear me saying those words, shoot me." And then 20 years later, somehow we say the exact same thing and we say it with passion. So I wanted to create somebody who couldn't escape that destiny. So after John witnesses this, he decides he doesn't want to be a police officer.
His father is a cop. His father was
He doesn't
a cop,
want to follow in
right?
his father's footsteps, and he doesn't want to have a drinking problem, and he doesn't want to be a bad husband. And he fails at all three.
He fails at all three.
You know, so but that's human nature, isn't it?
There's a lot of psychology in your book. I mean, it's not. It's about the police and about murder, but it's also about human nature, and that's what I really enjoyed about reading it.
Thank you.
You also have a black female.
I do.
And they have an affair.
Yes.
Is that normal?
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly normal for coworkers. I thought that by doing that, I would show the reality of the job, which is that a lot of times, I think one of the reasons that infidelity happens and the marriages tend to fall apart the longer the people are police officers is because you're sort of alienating yourself from your own spouse. The things that you're dealing with on a day in and day out basis, you can't take home with you. You can't talk about the horrors of the job with your spouse because that's not something you share with people that aren't exposed to it. So you end up really kind of sharing that with the people you work with.
I mean, it's strange because you think of cops as being family, good family people, and so on.
And they are, but I mean, weird hours and weird things. I mean, like I say, you can't talk about a gruesome scene that bothered you and take that home with you. You can't do that.
So tell us a little bit more about how you write. You had this idea of wanting to write ages ago. And you only acted upon it after you retired from the police force?
I started writing, trying to write a novel 6 months before I retired in 2012. And the first book, the Drawer novel.
Yes, of course,
that's where it all resides. Some of us have more than that, but I was lucky to get one. But it took me 2.5 years to write that book. And then from that, I learned two things. One is that I wasn't very good at it yet. And that I now knew the answers to how to be good at it. I knew who my characters were. I knew what my story really was about.
Who were some of your inspirations? Like,
you know, really for me. Oh, you mean as far as writers go?
Right.
You know, it's funny. One of the big ones for me started early on. People all think that I must have read a lot of mystery books to be able to pull this off. You know, going from nobody to actually having a bestseller is quite a feat. It's a scary feat actually, because now I have to repeat that. But I didn't. For me, the thing that hooked me to reading and writing novels was Stephen King.
Really?
The first,
great writer. Did you read his book about writing? I forgot the name of it. But
repeatedly, on writing.
On writing.
It's a great book.
Really great book.
Salem's Lot was the one that hit me, and I read that when I was like 11 or 12. And it scared the hell out of me. But I instantly became in love with the art of storytelling. He did such a great job with that I could actually believe, you know, a village of vampires was living over near Cumberland, Maine. And for me, I said, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do with my life. You know?
He really is a great craftsman at doing that. So we know that the CSI stuff that you see on television, that's kind of trash, right?
It is trash. It is trash.
It's good television, but it's not.
No, there's not reality.
No.
There's something that actually takes place where when we go and they work to pick a jury, you actually have to try to undo that, because people that sit on juries who watch those TV shows believe that we can do all of those things.
Oh, I see.
You know? And I tell people if police work was really like you see on television, I wouldn't have retired. I would still have brown hair. I'd have all of it. I would never have left that job. But never once in my 28 years did I blow up a grainy security video and have it get clearer. Never once did that happen. So that's not how that works.
No, and the whole thing is now we are law-abiding citizens. We have a law-abiding citizen. Other readers of mysteries are law-abiding citizens. Why do we like to read about crime?
I think it's that good versus evil that goes way back. I think it's you always want somebody to root for. I think we all project ourselves into that character that's up against the insurmountable odds, and seems like they'll never escape. The person's tied to the railroad tracks. We'll get there before the train. I think that's part of human nature.
Yeah.
That's something that we all are attracted to, and I think even more so for me, I'm writing about the job that it's a fictional account, but it's a job I know. So I'm making up the plots, but the job I know.
Yeah.
So for me, I live this stuff, but your average person never gets to do that.
Yeah.
So I think that's a way of getting them in the front seat of the police car.
Right.
And racing to the scene.
And, yeah.
You
Did you outline it? Did you have the plot in your head? No, you just.
The drawer novel I didn't outline, which is probably why it's in the drawer. But the second one, I actually came back from the New England Crime Week with a fresh set of ideas, and my vow was to throw that drawer novel out. I didn't throw it away, but throw it out and start over with my plot.
Yeah.
And I spent 2.5 hours recording my synopsis into my phone on the way home. And then I spent 5 months writing the manuscript for that book.
Yeah.
That became Among the Shadows.
Yeah. So we're talking with Bruce Coffin, and Among the Shadows is his first book. Now you told me that there's another book coming out, right?
There is.
And you want to share with us, or
sure.
is it a secret?
No, the second novel is called Beneath the Depths, and it is the second in the Detective Byron mystery series.
Right.
And once again, we find John up against the worst of it.
Yeah.
And really,
John Byron is the protagonist.
Yep.
He's a sergeant.
He's a detective sergeant.
Yes.
And he runs a homicide unit in Portland. And John is tasked with investigating the death of a prominent Portland attorney.
Yeah.
An infamous attorney.
Oh, I see. So the first one, Among the Shadows, was about the death of some cops.
Correct.
Retired cops.
Retired police officers.
And we find out that there was a crime that happened a long time ago that's unclear.
Yep.
And things come back to roost in John Byron's whole life.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's
the ultimate irony.
Yeah.
The ultimate irony.
Yeah.
And in this one, really, I think if there's a lesson, it's those underlying themes that we put in our stories. This one, I think, is to give people a peek that regardless of whether or not the victim is a good person, the homicide detective still has to go out and try to pursue justice.
Right.
And one of the things that I like to point out to people is that regardless of how despicable we may find a victim on a murder case, somebody more despicable lives out there that killed this person.
Oh, I see. That's
how you have
that's
to
a
look
very
at it.
interesting way of looking at it. Yeah. It's a fast-paced book. I read it, cherished it right up until the end, and so we want to have murders in novels, right?
But
that's not most of police work. Most police work is robberies, carjackings, and so on. You don't read books about carjackings.
No, it's not that.
Why do we want murders?
I think there's just so much at stake. I think there's so much on the line. You think that somebody's capable of taking a human life. Would they be capable of doing it again if
it's
they're not?
The ultimate crime.
It really is.
Yeah.
And there's the motives are as old as history. They're generally only a few motives for something like that.
Yeah.
You're talking about greed or jealousy or maybe just rage or there's a bunch of things that can lead to that. And I think we're all fascinated as human beings to think that everybody has that button that could be pushed. And then somebody's got to try to clean
Yes,
it.
but there's something else as well. Because the person is dead, we don't have the history, and we have to go and recount the history to lead to that death. Whereas if there's a person that's raped, there's a witness there.
Yeah, the victim can't speak, so you have to rely on the skills of the detectives.
Exactly.
And to read the evidence correctly. You need evidence gatherers that actually know what they're doing and can read the crime scenes properly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information left behind. The dead speak, but they speak differently.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's in your novel is that the police are very concerned about the crime scene.
Yes.
Yeah, about keeping it clean.
Yes.
right.
Yeah, there's two things that can happen to a crime scene. Evidence can be tracked in, which has nothing to do with the crime,
Right.
and evidence can be tracked out, which is then lost forever.
Yeah, and I think you talked about the EMT workers as, didn't you give them a name like they trash the evidence?
Oh, yeah, well, that's a joke, but because my firefighter buddies will get that, but we used to call the EMTs and the firefighters when they would show up at a scene the evidence eradication unit.
Right.
I don't know if that's as funny to them as it was to us, but
Yeah.
you know, in the process of doing their job,
Yeah, of course.
their job is to try and save the life right
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
And but in so doing, they do risk contaminating the scene.
yeah.
You know.
Which is very important because you want to solve the scene.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure.
right, and
Yeah.
they want to save the lives
Yeah.
that are. So African Americans have a real problem with the police. What do you think is what's the solution here? Portland doesn't have this problem too much. You know, Portland, I have to say,
Right.
Portland's such a nice town.
Right.
I've been there so many times, and I don't get the feeling that there's much happening except maybe drunks at 2 a.m.
Right, right.
But I guess there must be. What kind of crimes do you get there? And
Yeah, I mean, there's. I think that's in every society. I think it's relative to the number of people you have. I mean, you know, really, it's about the percentage of your society, the percentage of your police department that might
Yeah.
be comprised of minorities. I think there's a lot of characterization of what goes on. It's funny because I think obviously, you know, racism exists in all forms,
absolutely.
and it exists everywhere.
Yeah.
You can't take that out of human nature.
Right.
But what's funny to me is that even though we all know it exists, from the standpoint of the people I worked with, we never thought of ourselves as white cops. I mean, I work with African American police officers, Asian American police officers, gay, straight, male, female.
Right.
We're all part of a team, and we
Right.
feel like we're all on the same team.
Yeah.
So to me, I never broke it down that way, and
Yeah.
I think most cops don't look at it that way. I think a lot of times what you see in the news media really is misinformation that gets spread, and the assumption that if depending on the color of in the case of a police shooting,
Yeah.
depending on the color of the shooter, then we start to draw conclusions from that.
Right.
And I think that does a disservice to law enforcement in general.
Yes.
You know, I never looked at it that way.
Right.
You know, for me, we were all doing the same job, and I.
Did do you think you've inspired other cops to write novels?
You know, I don't know. Hopefully that would be kind of nice.
Yeah.
I think we all have.
You're not the first.
Story.
You're
No.
not the first cop to write cop fiction.
No.
Yeah,
Actually, a buddy of mine, Brian Thiem, does a real nice job too. He's a
Yeah.
retired Oakland, California lieutenant,
Uh-huh.
and he does a nice job with that as well. I think it's too bad that there aren't more of us that actually do this, because I think we have so many stories.
Exactly. And
You know, we see human nature for what it is.
Yeah.
The good and the bad.
right.
And we spend a career trying to psychoanalyze the people we deal with.
Mm-hmm.
So really the stories come easily. It's just a question of coming up with a good plot.
Right.
We see plenty of characters. We work with plenty of characters.
Well, it's not just coming up with a good plot, but it's actually writing. What's more important to you, story or syntax?
Actually, for me, neither. I think the most important thing is the character.
The character.
Yeah, and I tell people that really because if you stop and think about the things that we've been attracted to in writing over the years
Yeah.
or in television, the thing that gets us most is the character. And I tell, like I've talked to a lot of students, and I tell them that
Yeah.
if you don't care about the character, you're never going to care what happens to
Exactly. You have to really care about Joe and his
Yeah.
world, the world that he's in.
And I think you
But
can't help
also-
but feel bad because Joe's a normal person.
Yeah, but you
John,
also,
I mean, John's a normal person, but he
John,
has problems.
yeah,
He has problems.
yeah, but you also want to see what actually happened. You also want to see the story.
Right.
You don't want to keep. Because I continued to read to see just to solve the case, right? And
Yep.
to see if my ideas of the case were right. And I'm pretty good about this. And yeah, so Are you writing now again? Or
Yeah.
you got one coming out? So
Yep.
this is there going to be a third? Is
Yes,
this
I'm working
it's
on
a
the third one right
series?
now. Actually,
Yeah.
before I came here, I did 2 hours worth of work at,
Really?
at a local Irish pub.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say any names, they'll be looking for advertising, so. But, yeah, you know, I grab a minute everywhere I can. For me, I've done a lot of appearances since the book came out in September. And I grab all the spare time I can. If I'm off to a library somewhere in northern Maine, I'll intentionally go up early and hide and then work on the book.
Right.
So the third novel is the one I'm working on right now, and
Do you think of it in graphic terms and then put it on paper, or you think of the story in your head as a video, or what?
yeah, you know, it's weird. Sometimes it's just sort of playing in the background as I'm going about my day, and I can see things very vividly, and as they become vivid, I have to stop and write them down. I was just into a pretty big scene before I came here, and the writing was flowing nicely. It's nice when that happens.
Yeah, yeah. You go to also you go to conferences,
Yes.
and do you get inspired by that, and you know, seeing other people writing and being in the company of other writers?
I do.
Do you
Yeah.
belong to Writers Club?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
Sisters in Crime, the Mystery Writers of America, Maine Writers and Publishers Alliance. For me, there's two kinds of inspiration. One is going and doing the appearances either at the conference for the fans
Yeah,
or at the libraries or the bookstores, because those are the people that can't wait for the next book.
yeah.
And that's very motivational.
We've only got a couple of seconds left here.
Yeah.
Tell us what to do if you're stopped by a cop.
Yes, sir, no, sir.
Yeah.
Hands on the steering wheel.
All right, Bruce Coffin. We're talking about his book and his first book and a series of books. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you
Bruce.
for having me.
All right, bye.